Lumen point. Let's begin the breakdown. He was a genius who unlocked the very power of the atom. A man who was celebrated as a hero and, at the same time, condemned as a destroyer. So today, we're going to dive into the brilliant and deeply conflicted life of J. Robert Oppenheimer. You've probably heard these words before. They're from the Bhagavad Gita, and they're what popped into Oppenheimer's head as he watched the first ever nuclear explosion. I mean, what a quote. It just perfectly captures the terrifying, world-changing weight of what he had created.
So who was this guy, really? The answer is, well, it's not simple at all. Was he the hero who finally ended a horrific world war, or was he the man who basically opened Pandora's box for all of humanity? This contradiction, this puzzle, is really the core of Oppenheimer's entire story.
To really get who the man behind the bomb was, we've got to go back. We need to trace his journey from this incredibly bright young kid to a physicist at the absolute top of his field. A rise that was, honestly, nothing short of meteoric.
Okay, so Oppenheimer was born into a pretty privileged New York family. He went to this place called the Ethical Culture Society School, which is interesting because it shaped his mind with this dual focus on both morality and academics. And that's a theme that's going to echo throughout his entire life. His brilliance was just undeniable. He tore through science, skipped grades, and landed at Harvard when he was only 18 years old.
And his academic rise was just staggering. I mean, he blitzed through Harvard in only 3 years. Then he goes on this tour of Europe's top physics spots, learning from Nobel laureates like J.J. Thomson and Max Born. And by the time he's 23, he already has his PhD. It's just a testament to his incredible intellect.
But, this is where the story starts to get really complicated, because there were kind of two Oppenheimers. On one hand, you have this absolute genius, a brilliant theoretical physicist, but on the other hand, a deeply troubled man, someone who was obsessive, had zero discipline in a lab, and showed some really strange, intense behaviors. And this darker side, it really came out in some pretty alarming ways. While he was at Cambridge, he got so frustrated with a tutor that he apparently left a poisoned apple on his desk. This act, which nearly got him thrown out, really showed a volatile side that went way beyond just some academic rivalry. He once told his brother, "I need physics more than friends." That one sentence tells you almost everything you need to know about his motivation. It was this all-consuming obsession with his work that just overshadowed everything and everyone else.
And it was exactly that obsessive focus that will put him right at the center of the event that would define his life and, let's be honest, change the world forever. The frantic race to build the atomic bomb.
Now, for years, Oppenheimer was famously apolitical. I mean, he claimed he didn't even learn about the Great Depression until months after it started. But the rise of the Nazis in Germany, a place he'd studied and loved, that woke him up. He started getting involved in various left-wing causes. And you better believe those connections did not go unnoticed. By 1941, the FBI had opened a file on him, flagging him as a potential security risk. Think about that. At the exact moment his country was about to need his brain more than ever, his own government was deeply suspicious of him. So even with this FBI file hanging over his head, he gets recruited for this top-secret weapons project. General Leslie Groves, the military guy in charge, somehow saw past all the security red flags and made the pretty controversial choice to make Oppenheimer the scientific director. He then sets up the Los Alamos lab out in the New Mexico desert, and the race against the Nazis was officially on.
And this all leads us to the climax of the project, the moment of creation, and the absolutely devastating consequences that would follow.
So picture this. It's July 16th, 1945. After years of non-stop work by thousands of people, everything came down to this single moment in the New Mexico desert. The Trinity test. Was this thing going to work, or was it all going to be a catastrophic failure? As this massive, silent flash of light erupted from the desert floor, his brother said Oppenheimer's first words were just simple, understated, almost clinical. "I guess it worked." That's the scientist, seeing his experiment succeed. But almost immediately, that practical scientific reaction was just overwhelmed by the philosophical horror of what he had just unleashed on the world. This quote, this is where you see that profound conflict just start to rage inside of him. And this is why that horror set in so fast. Just weeks later, the bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. The devastation was, it's hard to even comprehend, well over 100,000 people killed, forcing Japan's surrender. Many of the scientists on the project were just horrified, especially after that second bomb was dropped. For Oppenheimer, the triumph very quickly turned to guilt. In a meeting with President Truman just a few months later, he confessed, "Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands." And Truman, well, he was disgusted by what he saw as weakness and basically threw him out of the White House.
And that moment, right there in the Oval Office, really marked a turning point. In the post-war world, the creator of the bomb would, paradoxically, transform from a national hero into a political outcast. Suddenly, he's an overnight celebrity, right? His face is on the cover of magazines. But he uses this newfound platform to push for the one thing the government did not want to hear: restraint. He argued for international control and, maybe most importantly, he fiercely opposed building the even deadlier hydrogen bomb.
Well, his powerful enemies in Washington saw his opposition to the H-bomb as a threat, and they decided he had to be neutralized. So in 1954, they dragged him through this sham security hearing. And as you can see, the charges were all based on his old political associations and his policy disagreements, not on a single shred of evidence that he was ever disloyal.
The outcome was never really in doubt. He was never charged with a crime, but his security clearance was revoked. Just like that, the father of the atomic bomb was officially cast out. His career in public service was completely destroyed.
After that, he spent his final years pretty quietly. He did receive a sort of gesture of rehabilitation with an award in 1963, but it was largely symbolic. He passed away from cancer just a few years later at the pretty young age of 62.
And so we're left with this huge, unsettling question. Oppenheimer's genius gave the world a weapon that ended its deadliest war. But in doing so, did he unleash a power that humanity simply can't control? It was a question he could never really answer himself, and his complicated, terrifying legacy, well, that's something we all have to confront now.
Fuel your curiosity. Subscribe for the explanation. Stay for the knowledge.